Welcome to my epic 250-day challenge in the captivating settlement builder Foundation. I'm Domsky, and over the next 250 days we will attempt to transform this humble settlement into a thriving metropolis, exploring every facet this game has to offer, starting from humble cottages to towering castles. So whether you're a seasoned city planner or a newcomer such as myself, join me on this 250-day challenge to learn, grow, and create something truly spectacular together. So without further ado, I present my little settlement. On day one, I loaded onto the map that we'll call home for the next 100 days and decided on settling on a small parcel of land surrounded by some river. I made it just because I saw some rocks, some berries, and some forests, and I thought they would be useful. I went about finding a location to place the village centre. I believe I placed it in a good place, although I'm not entirely sure yet. However, I followed the tutorial and then went ahead and placed a builder's workshop. From what I understand about the builder's workshop, it allows your villagers to have a little sit down indoors and plan out the buildings I'm asking them to build. Once that was all done, it was at this stage I discovered the book. The book allowed me to dictate what occupations I wanted my villagers to undertake, and seeing as there was only 2 available, they all very quickly became builders and woodcutters. I placed down a lumber camp so that my workers could get busy and marked out an area for them to work in. At which point the builders began to build the camp and the woodcutters got to work. It was at this stage the game started yelling at me that I was deforesting our lands, so I decided to build a forester's camp. The forester's camp allows one of my villagers to replant the forest, so at this stage I begin to zone it out. Once the foresters were foresting and the builders were building, it was about time to feed my villagers. Therefore, I placed a gathering hut. The gathering hut allows members of my village, once assigned to the forager role, to collect berries and store them, so that my population doesn't die and is actually happy and fed. It was this stage I was provided with 2 new buildings, one of which being the granary. The granary required stone, so I first placed down a stonecutter's camp near the stone nodes in order for my builders to begin erecting that first. And once that was placed, I found a nice little spot for the granary and went ahead and laid out the blueprint for that. A few days passed and voila! A granary. I assigned the granary to stockpile berries and began to place down some market stalls so that my villagers have access to goods. Now, I'm not going to lie, I'm assuming this works off the basis of we're all in this together, because I am definitely not paying any of these people any wages in order to purchase any produce. So they're either very friendly with one another or they're stealing it. Well, regardless of any thievery that's happening in my village, they need to drink, so I go ahead and place a well. I think it's a pretty good spot for it, but who knows. Now that my villagers have all the bare essentials, I can now place down some residential. The residential area just allows my villagers to build houses in this select zone, which in turn puts a roof over their heads and a place to call home. Whilst gazing from afar, overlooking the houses being constructed, I'm prompted to buy up some more land. I decide to buy the parcel of land which has the most real estate on our island, so I have more room to expand and so that we may have more villagers. However, just before expanding, I would like to point out our first home. Look at him go! Feeling satisfied of our new houses, I used the new land we've got and expand the residential zone. Feeling like a little cheeky boy, I decided to treat myself and rework the woodcutting and reforestation zones. Whilst I'm at it, I also expand the woodcutting zone into the residential section to make way for more housing. At this stage, I open a prompt which informs me around the prospects of establishing a trade route with a neighbouring settlement, and as a result, I create a lumber camp. Due to the location of the lumber camp, I decided to sort of jig some stuff around and basically just make it look far neater and far tidier, if I'm being honest with you. I'm assuming I can take the logs, turn them into planks, thus turning them into stonks. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And it is also at this stage I realise that those little upward arrows you saw me clicking, that's to prioritise building, so I start utilising that more. Whilst waiting for that building to be constructed, I do some more residential zoning, move our gathering hut beside the granary, and have a little look around our village. And clearly at some stage I built that well. I don't remember building that, but I built it, so there it is. Coming back to my second play session, I realised I had a quest to build a warehouse. I really wasn't sure where this was, however upon reading the instructions I found the building section in the book. For a small fee of 75 gold, I could buy the warehouse, fishing buildings and butchering buildings, so I went ahead and did just exactly that. I went ahead and placed the warehouse down to progress our questline and soon after tried to find a location for our fishing hut. I quickly realised all the fish were not in any of our territories we owned, so for another fee of 125 gold, I bought up some more land, placed a fishing hut, and also sought out a good location to place our hunter's hut. With the hunter's hut in mind and wanting to expand our food selection a little bit, I went ahead and placed a butchery behind our villagers' houses just to break those textures up a little bit. With all our new buildings, I looked at the book, reassigned some roles, and once again began zoning. I zoned out some new hunting areas as well as rezoned some existing areas. Feeling a little bit impatient and waiting for the buildings to be completed, I went back into the buildings tab, purchased the remaining items and began to spruce the place up a little bit. I placed a bunch of trees to sort of line the path. I then went ahead and placed some bushes, not many, just to break up the grass a little bit, and then also went ahead and placed some wooden benches. I kind of placed them in places where I thought would be nice to sit or nice to have them. So yeah, I didn't go overkill with all the decoration. I mainly just wanted to have a play around and honestly just see what it was like to decorate. After some time had passed, the warehouse was finally complete. I assigned planks to be allowed within its storage in order to finish my quest, as well as wood and stone. Once completed, another quest popped up that told me that I needed to establish a trade route. This trade route had to be with a neighbouring town and was going to cost me 20 planks. However, at this stage, it was honestly just a matter of waiting. But whilst I was waiting, I suddenly realised we were hemorrhaging money, and honestly, I generally have no idea what negative effects it's going to have once it hits 0. But yeah, we'll find out. After a period of waiting, and with about 8 gold to our name, we were finally able to exchange the 20 planks we've accumulated to establish a trade route with Northbury. It was at this stage in the existence of our village where I really started to figure out and feel comfortable with the book and all other aspects of this game. I went into the resources tab, selected to sell our planks to the neighbouring village, and checked the quest log for what comes next. Our next quest was to build a manor house so that we can enact mandates within our village. I decided on placing the manor house in the town centre, as it was starting to feel a little empty in that part of the village, honestly. And yeah, once I had placed the manor house, I quickly discovered that this game wasn't all about selecting preset buildings, and that you actually have some flexibility in how you want them to look. I didn't really notice at the time, but looking back on it, this building mechanic honestly reminds me of My Sims on like the Nintendo Wii. So yeah, shout out to those old enough to know exactly what I'm talking about. Once I was happy with how our manor house was going to look, I completed the building and it gave us a parts list of what we needed. I knew we was lacking in planks as I literally just traded them all away, and I knew that we were probably going to need some more builders, woodcutters, etc. So I went back into the book and began micromanaging the village. It wasn't perfect to begin with, so about the next couple of days I kind of just readjusted who should work what roles, and eventually we got there. We got there in the end. Because I had built the main part of the manor house, it gave me some prosperity points, and we unlocked the next set of buildings in the book. With the limited amount of funds we have, I decided to buy the tavern and the bailiff's office. I'm hoping that the bailiff's office will allow me to collect some taxes, and that the tavern will provide some more incentives for people to move into my village. I'm really unsure how this works exactly in terms of people moving in, like migration, but I'm assuming in order for people to move in, I need to complete the initial set of quests. I really have no idea. I'm just hoping my game isn't bugged out at this point. I end up not placing either of the new buildings as I just want to focus on the manor house right now. But yeah, however, whilst playing around with the Discoveries tab, I come to discover what mandates are. Because I purchased the bailiff's office, this has allowed me to discuss levying coins for my villagers, and I'm assuming I'll be able to enforce other mandates later down the line. But because it will decrease the happiness by 30%, and we're already nearing 50% happiness, I decided against it, as I really don't want to piss off my villagers any more than I have been. Now, it keeps popping up with the fact that my village centre is unreachable and has been this entire time, so honestly I'm very confused. The only thing that would be blocking my village centre or my villagers' access to the town centre is the builder's workshop, so I decided to move it out the way to see if it has an effect, and whilst I'm at it, I decided to redo the stalls in the village centre as well, so they have covers over top of them and it just looks a little bit pretty, but hopefully this kind of stops that notification popping up. Now that the manor house is complete, the tutorial quest line is also complete. I begin to think to myself, yes, finally! Maybe some fucking people will immigrate! Maybe I'll have more than 10 fucking villages! And yeah, it's not the case. So, for those hardened Foundation players that have been screaming at my monitor for the last 10 minutes, don't worry, I do figure it out just to put you at peace, so you can stop screaming at your monitors. I generally do figure out what the problem is, okay? Now that I've progressed to the point of total independence, I notice that my happiness is below 50% at this stage, and a lot of that is to do with the lack of food and service. I allocate the market stalls all the meat I've been stockpiling, as at the time I didn't realise they wasn't serving it. I reallocate some more roles in my village and begin to find a place to put down my church. By placing a church, it should allow my villagers to get rid of that -20 service debuff, so yeah, I kind of prioritise that. Now at this stage in my village, I decide to move the industrial part off to the side a little bit more to sort of make that real estate a bit more desirable. However, in doing that, what I've essentially done is I've deleted everything I need to do woodworking, and I don't have the resources to replace it. So I come to find that, for a lack of better words, I fuck myself. So I have to reload and relaunch the game from about this point. I reload my game, make the woodworking buildings a priority, rezone my residential, and do one of the things which has plagued my town since the beginning. That's right, I build a bridge. Whilst I will always figure out stuff on my own in these kind of games, this was something I was never going to figure out. After searching Google, I came across a Reddit page that had a comment regarding building your village on an island, and it was at this point it had clicked. My villagers weren't the ones having issues accessing the village center. It was those seeking to migrate to the village center that were having the issues find it, right? Between now and the bridge being complete, there was a lot of waiting and micromanagement involved. I didn't exactly want to subject you guys to that, but I was basically ensuring the buildings were being erected in the right order, making sure that the happiness of my villagers was being addressed by ensuring people were once again working the correct roles and making sure that my villagers had enough housing. By this point, I'd sort of managed to work my way up to about 80% happiness, and yeah. The bridge was finally complete and the struggles were over. I finally had access to the Northberry Trader and was able to recruit 2 new villagers. My village does really pick up from here and it makes my life so much easier playing this game. And having more villagers just means I'm able to adequately source more food, lumber, stone, etc. so much more efficiently, which allows me to expand much quicker. I allowed our builders to upgrade the already existing houses so that up to 6 people could occupy them, did some more job allocation, and recruited another 2 villagers, assigning them to Hunter and Forager. The church was slowly but surely coming together at this stage, and another 4 villagers had migrated to our village. They too were assigned jobs, and more houses were being constructed. As the days passed and our village grew, I knew we were eventually going to run out of career choices. I placed down a sheep's farm, which allowed us to produce wool, and I believe that from this wool we can make better clothing, thus promoting some of our village presence into common folk. This is important as I believe it will allow for some more dialogue options to be had in terms of managing my population, and I may even be able to promote someone to the point of king/queen. I really have no idea, but I'd like to think we'd eventually be able to build like a ridiculously monstrous castle, so yeah. I recruited yet another 3 villagers, bringing our total to 23, gave them jobs, did some reforestation, and built 1 more stall so that we could sell all the fish I was hoarding. Unfortunately, with the current trade route, I was unable to sell our fish to Northberry, but I think if we get 20 cloth, we can open up another trade route, ensuring that we make some more stonks. Nearing 250 days, I decided it was about time to place a tailor's building so that once the sheep farm was complete, we could manufacture some finer clothing, add some more decorations to our village for the last time in this session, and finally take a step back and look over what we've created thus far in our journey. In summary, my first 250 days in Foundation was a blast, and I thank all those who have watched this far into the video. It's my first 100 days S video, and I'll definitely be playing more Foundation in the coming weeks. However, if you are looking to play the game yourself, it's currently on Steam for £27. If you haven't noticed, the village currently has no name, so I'd appreciate if you guys could leave your suggestions down below in the comment section. Thank you and goodbye.